Well, the federal government says it is still intent on buying the Trans Mountain pipeline. And Finance Minister Bill Morneau said closing the deal could happen as early as today. That is despite the Federal Court of Appeal overturning the government's approval of the pipeline expansion. And Justice Ellison Dawson said the National Energy Board's assessment of the project was flawed for two major reasons. First, it did not assess the impacts of increased tanker traffic on endangered southern resident orcas, and First Nations were not adequately nor meaningfully consulted. Meantime, Alberta has pulled out of the federal Pan-Canadian Climate Plan in response to the court ruling. We have convened a panel of local MPs for their take on all of this. Joyce Murray is the Liberal MP for Vancouver Quadra. She's been good enough to join us in studio this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And on the line we have Ed Fast, the Conservative MP for Abbotsford and official opposition critic for environment and climate change, and Finn Donnelly, the NDP MP for Port Moody Coquitlam and the critic for Fisheries, Oceans and Coast Guard. Good morning to you, Ed and Finn.
Good morning, Stephen.
Ms. Murray, to you first. Will your government be appealing this court decision to the Supreme Court of Canada?
The government's reviewing the decision. I mean, this is 270 odd pages, and it's excuse me. It's going to take some time to fully understand it, but the government is committed to the project, sees the requirement for meaningful consultation with First Nations to be important, and improving the environmental considerations of the project, and considers that there's will be a better project because of the Supreme Court decision.
Which route, though, do you think would be a better way to go? To take this to the Supreme Court of Canada, or to seek leave at the Supreme Court of Canada, or to, as the court suggested, redoing Phase 3 of the consultation process?
Well, I'm not going to predict what the decision will be, and there's some analysis of the decision of the court right now. But what we know is that this reflects the absolute woeful state of the National Energy Board under the Stephen Harper government. We've done a lot of work to correct that, and that shows up in Bill C-69, where we improve our environmental safety net. But that took a couple of years, and so there was an interim process to add consultation with communities and First Nations, and the court is saying that wasn't enough. We need to do more.
But you can say what you want about the National Energy Board, and as the court said, it being inadequate, the level of consultation. But your cabinet still approved this project.
Absolutely. So it approved this project as being in the national interest. It's challenging to bring a province like Alberta into a climate plan, a program, a national climate program. That was critical for meeting our Paris targets. And Alberta agreed to make reductions to its methane gas, to increase its carbon tax, to put a cap on emissions, and to close out coal-fired plants years ahead of schedule. Those were very important measures for us to meet our Paris targets. And what they needed in exchange was to have other markets than just the United States for their product. And so that's why the decision was made at that time. I do want to point out that our government understood the weakness around the marine side of the National Energy Board's process under Stephen Harper, and that's why the Ocean Protection Plan was put in place that addresses a lot of those elements, as well as the interim process to do more in the way of consultation.
Ed Fast, is it still worth it for the government to pursue buying and expanding the Trans Mountain Pipeline in light of this decision by the Federal Court of Appeal?
Well, we were never in favor of the government taking ownership of a privately held pipeline. This failure rests squarely with Justin Trudeau. Joyce can do what she wants in Canada. We'll wriggle out of responsibility here, but her government's climate change plan is in shambles. Remember, it was Justin Trudeau who said, listen, if you implement a carbon tax, if you implement and become part of my climate change plan, you will get your social license to build that energy infrastructure to the west and to the east. Well, guess what happened? It is a colossal failure. They failed First Nations on consultations. Justin Trudeau made promises he could never keep. You may recall he was prancing all across Canada saying, I'm going to get this pipeline built. I'm going to get this pipeline built. Then when he found out there were protests on the West Coast, he suddenly says, well, you know what? I'm going to buy it with taxpayers' money, and I'm going to get it built. Like the force of his personality was going to get this built. This is a colossal failure, and now we have taxpayers owning a pipeline that likely will never get built, and Alberta has bailed out of its carbon tax commitments, just like Ontario has, which makes it impossible for the Liberals to meet their climate change targets.
Well, Finn, let me ask you about that. Alberta Premier Rachel Notley saying her province is doing exactly what Ed just said, pulling out of the federal government's carbon pricing plan in response to the court ruling. She will not be raising Alberta's carbon tax as was originally planned. Your party has been against the Trans Mountain project, but as we're seeing now, it was part of a bargaining chip to get Alberta to agree to Canada's climate plan. How would your party handle trying to keep Canada's climate plan from falling apart right now?
Well, that is the challenge of a federation, absolutely. And we would work with all parties like the federal government must do. But, Stephen, let me start off with congratulating the Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish nations for their victory yesterday, and I think that should be stated. And I just want to address Joyce's comments. In 2015, the Liberals did promise to redo the NEB's review process, but once elected, they broke that promise. So New Democrats have always maintained that that process was flawed, and yesterday the federal courts recognized that. I also want to point out, Joyce talks about the Ocean Protection Plan. There is no technology in place currently to clean up diluted bitumen. And on the West Coast, we know how important a healthy environment is to our coastal economy. We know that a spill of toxic dilbit would be devastating to the endangered southern resident killer whale and our iconic wild salmon and our marine ecosystem.
Yeah. So I just would like to correct an inaccuracy here, Stephen. The fact is
Stephen,
that...
can I just
finish? Could we just let Finn finish, please, and then you can respond.
Thanks, Stephen. Thankfully, the courts have recognized this, and now it's time that the federal government does the right thing. It's time to invest in clean energy jobs, build an economy for the future, and that's a low-carbon economy. So that's does not include a risky move like buying a pipeline. And I will add, what Kinder Morgan wanted was certainty. They didn't want the government stepping in and using tax dollars to buy a pipeline, especially using pension funds or any other kind of tax dollars on this pipeline.
Sure, but 99% of Kinder Morgan shareholders voted yesterday to take the deal with the federal government. Finn, I want to give Joyce a chance to respond here, and then we're going to take a break for traffic.
Yeah,
Joyce.
just a correction. We promised to fix the National Energy Board and set to work doing exactly that. It's not something that, well, actually it is. It's done in Bill C-69, which passed Parliament and creates a new Canada Energy Regulator and puts the environmental assessment where it belongs into an impact assessment agency.
We are going to take hold that thought for a moment, please, Finn. We're going to take a quick break for traffic. Amy Bell is here with traffic and weather.
Yeah, the biggest issue on the water, we've had cancellations now on the BC ferries. So they had to cancel the 7 a.m. Swartz Bay to Tawasin, and then the return 9 a.m. out of Tawasin to Swartz Bay has been canceled. The 11 Swartz Bay to Tawasin is canceled, as is the 1 o'clock return from Tawasin to Swartz Bay. This will have a huge impact on travel today, and ahead of the long weekend, we'll want to get this resolved quickly, so we'll keep you posted. Mix of sun and cloud today. In fact, right through the long weekend, though, we'll see things a little heavier in the clouds at times, so plenty of sunshine. Back with more before the news.
Thanks, Amy. We are talking about what is next for the Trans Mountain Pipeline project in light of yesterday's decision from the Federal Court of Appeal. Joyce Murray is the Liberal Member of Parliament for Vancouver Quadra, Ed Fast, the Conservative MP for Abbotsford, and Finn Donnelly, the NDP MP for Port Moody Coquitlam. Back to Joyce Murray. Joyce, the court found that your government approved the project despite the NEB's failing to assess the impact of increased tanker traffic on endangered species. Why should British Columbians trust that you will protect the coast from major tanker traffic and a major tanker spill when you approved this project based on a review that didn't even properly assess the risk?
Well, Stephen, I agree that it is absolutely critical that citizens can trust governments and regulators so that they can be confident that when a project is put forward that the environment will be protected and people consulted appropriately, especially Indigenous people. So what the government did do is look at the weaknesses in the previous government's environmental safety net, as I said, especially the National Energy Board, and then backfill with additional consultations and with a plan to address the concerns on the oceans and the marine area. I want to just mention that it's well known that I argued against this project, actually, and expressed my profound disappointment when it was first approved.
But here you are today defending it.
Well, I also understand the difficulty of bringing Alberta into our national climate plan, and I think Canadians are aware just how critical it is that we move ahead together with the provinces, especially Alberta, on a climate framework. So I'm actually very disappointed that the Alberta is considering abandoning that plan, though I do understand the frustration of the people of Alberta around this project and its hurdles.
Can I clarify one thing?
Sure, go ahead, Finn.
Sorry, Stephen. This is back to the comment about Justin Trudeau during the 2015 election campaign. On Vancouver Island, he said that he would fix the NEB process before the decision that was made 2 years ago. So the comment about using Bill C-69 is a little disingenuous, because what the promise made during the election, which is on camera, was that the Liberal government, if elected, or the Liberal Party, if elected, would change the NEB process before the decision, not after, before.
Ed Fast, the NEB process we're talking about, the process that the court criticized, is the NEB process that the previous Conservative government relied on. The review for this project started under that process and on the Conservative government's watch. How much responsibility do Conservatives bear for the flawed review of this project?
Well, it's pretty disingenuous for Finn and for Joyce to blame the previous government for this, because it was the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau that moved forward with imposing an interim process that the Kinder Morgan project had to go through. They said, listen, we don't like the old process, so we're going to insert a new process, which is temporary for now, until we do Bill C-69. That is the Liberal process. So they have to wear this. They didn't even comply with their own process. And it's very clear from the judgment from the Federal Court of Appeal that the federal government did not follow its own consultation process. So this is a colossal failure on the part of Justin Trudeau and his Minister of Environment to move forward and to do the proper review of a project that is so critical to Canada's long-term prosperity. Yeah. You know, since the beginning of January of 2016, so over a year and a half ago, we asked that Justin Trudeau come up with a concrete plan to ensure that this pipeline project got built. And all we've seen is one delay after another, and now we see from the court ruling that this Liberal government didn't even follow its own consultation process.
To be fair, many of those court delays, though, or many of those delays were because of the nearly 24 court challenges we've seen in this case. I mean, we do have the rule of law.
I agree. We have the rule of law, but what this recent decision does, it sets that project way back, and quite frankly, there's a very high likelihood that this project will never be built, and Canadians will be on the hook for $4.5 billion, which the Prime Minister very foolishly and recklessly chose to spend on this pipeline upon the assumption that through the force of his own personality, he was somehow going to get this thing built.
We are going to have to leave it there, I am afraid, all three of you. We appreciate your time very much this morning. Joyce Murray, thank you very much for being here. Ed Fast, Conservative MP for Abbotsford and official opposition critic for the environment. Joyce Murray, Liberal MP for Vancouver Quadra. Finn Donnelly, thank you as well, the NDP MP for Port Moody Coquitlam. If you'd like to add something to what you've just heard, please call our talkback line, 604-662-6690, 604-662-6690. 26 minutes.